All right, you future web devs, welcome to this video. What are we going to be doing in this one? We're going to be completing the lab of build a house painting that FreeCodeCamp offers for free for everybody to kind of go through. And it gives you some instructions, some user stories, and we're going to try to pass all the tests that it does. And so if this is your first time watching, my name is Rob. I'm a coding instructor for PreCodeCamp, and we are diving into these modules where we are coming at it from an instructor point of view. What does that mean? We're going to be looking things up. We're going to show you documentation. We're not just going to try to give you the answer, but we want to make sure you understand where that comes from. And if that is the type of video that you're looking for, then hey, keep watching. You're definitely going to learn something in this video. And all we ask you to do is hit that thumbs up button. That really helps out that YouTube algorithm. It's free. Doesn't cost you anything. Let's go ahead and dive in and see what we're actually going to be creating. All right, so we are now inside of our problem here, which is build a house painting. I always like to take a look at the project before we actually start, and it just looks somewhat simple with some of the stuff that they're doing here. It looks like we have a rectangle, we have some windows, we have some doors, a doorknob, little welcome text here that might be shifted a little bit. We have a chimney and some smoke. So but we'll see what it all asks us to do. And like I said, we are going to try to recreate what they give us. I know it tells you down there, try to make it your own. I'm going to hopefully give you some variable styles in here, and that way you can tweak it and make it your own and play around with the code. But what I typically do is try to recreate what they did and then leave it up to you to make it more personal. And so it does look like we have a few user stories to go through. And so let's go ahead and dive right into this one. Now, a real quick side note before really get started here. I feel like there's a really good extension that you might want to put in your Chrome browser for this. And it is this color picker by ColorZilla. So this is just one that I found that I use. Again, there's lots of these little color pickers out there, but you're going to be able to pluck the colors out of there. And later on in this video, I'll be plucking the colors out so we know which ones that they used, because we can click the extension and it will be able to grab one of the colors you can see up there on the top. And like, hey, what color brown did they use? And so we can go ahead and grab it, and it will be copied to the clipboard. And that way we can utilize it in the CSS. So that might be something that you might want to go ahead and grab. Again, it's called ColorZilla. All right. Okay. Now let's go ahead and dive into these objectives here. Okay. Okay. So there's a few things that we need to do before we're able to start any of this. And that's the very first thing that we need to do is let's go ahead and link our style sheet and then test to make sure that it does work. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add that link that will give us that reference to that style sheet. And again, FreeCodeCamp didn't do that for us. You can see all the way down here at the bottom, and it says, please make sure that you link your style sheet. And that way it will help relieve any headaches that you might be getting because of that. And so that's what this looks like right here. We have the link, and then we have the relationship here, style sheet, and then we have the href, which is the styles.css. Now we can test this to make sure that it does work. I'm going to go into the style sheet, and I'm just going to go ahead and do body, and let's just do a background color, and let's set that to red, and we should see the background go red. All right. So that's how you can just really do a really quick test to see if your style sheet is linked up, and it looks like it is. Okay, so with that being said, now let's go ahead and go into user story number 1, or user story here. And it says we need to create a div on here for the house. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to come in here, we're going to do div. And again, if this is your first time watching my videos, I always do opening and closing tags whenever it comes to creating these. And I believe for this entire thing, except for that welcome mat that we saw, we're really not going to put any kind of visible thing that we can see in there. Everything's going to be, hey, give it an ID and then go to the style sheet and see if you see it. And so I'm going to go ahead and give it the ID of house. Now, I feel like before I get started with this, I do want to create some sort of root color palette for variables. So that way we can go ahead and utilize it, because I feel like we're going to be referencing these colors a lot throughout. And so it's going to be a real nice, clean, simple way to kind of approach this. And so this is where that ColorZilla comes into play. Is you're going to take your eyedropper, grab some things, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to force you to go through this, but I will put the completed root color palette here in the video so you can pause the video and see what I came up with. But again, I'm just grabbing things from the background of green, the sky of blue, and the window colors, and so on. So let me go ahead and do that real quick. I'll pause the video, come back, and you'll see the code. All right, so I didn't realize that there might be so many things on this color palette. I might go ahead and put a link right below this video where you're able to grab this color palette. That way you can go ahead and use it. But in order to create this root level color palette with variables, we're going to go ahead and put a colon here, spell out the word root, and then do your curly brackets. And then, like I said, you can either type this stuff in, or you can take a look at the link down below and grab the rest of this stuff here. So like I said, it is a lot. Feel free to pause the video here, and then I'm going to go ahead and scroll down just a little bit more. But you can see that I put some comments in here. This is going to be the sky color. This is going to be the house color. This is the roof. The tile has different color based upon the slashes that were on there. We got our chimney colors, and then we got the window frames. Go ahead and, like I said, feel free to type those in, or you can go ahead and grab that special URL that I have down there. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and keep on working with this. Okay, so now that we have all of this, and oh, by the way, I did add this part right here. I forgot to include the grass. I just noticed that. And what I would like us to do next is apply a styling to all of the elements. And this is really going to help us out when it comes to positioning things. And that is going to be the box sizing. We want to set that to border box. I know we talked about this before in previous videos, but this is really going to allow us to position things and not have to worry about the math of positioning with margins and borders and how those all kind of add up together. And so we're just going to use box sizing, and we're going to do border box. So that's a real quick way for us to apply that to every single element. Now, before I get started with the house aspect, I would like to get our background to have that separation that we saw from the example, where we have the green grass down here on the bottom, we have the blue sky on top. And again, we're going to be referencing these variables. And one of the beauties about creating this little color palette for you guys is later on, you guys can go ahead in here and maybe you don't want the grass to be green. Maybe you want it to be a shade of pink, and you can come in here and change it really quick. So it's really quick on that update. Next is the body. So let's go ahead and target the body here. And as far as what do we want to do for it, let's go ahead and set up the color. Okay. And the way that we're going to create that division is we're going to target the CSS property of background. So we're going to go ahead and do background, and we want to utilize that linear gradient function. And I'm going to go ahead and go to the next line just to make things look a little pretty. And then we're going to start referencing these variables that we created. So I'm going to go ahead and do a var left and right parentheses. And inside here, we want to reference our sky. We're going to start from the top, and then we're going to work our way down. So let's go ahead and put our double dashes in there, and it's going to be color, sky, light. Okay, so you can kind of see right now it's already referencing it, which is great, but it's going all the way down, and that's where our gradient is going to come into play. And you can see this is that variable name that we just ended up using. Next, we're going to go ahead and say, you know what, let's go ahead and make this go 60%, okay, of the available space. And I put a comment in here because we want to add our second color. And so again, another var, and then we're going to do our dash color grass. And then down here, I want this to be 60% also. Now we're not going to see it because we haven't defined the height for that split. Now, because we want this to soak up the whole page and utilize it without repeating this linear gradient, we're going to go ahead and say, hey, you know what? Our height on here, let's go ahead and use the entire view height. And that should give us that nice split of that sky going down to 60%. And then the grass picking up from there and going back down to the bottom of the page. Okay. So I think that's all I want to do right now for the body. And now we can go ahead and target the house. Okay, so the next part here, I feel like we're going to tackle maybe user stories 2 through 4 on this. We want to establish the house. And so whenever we're going to be going about this as far as styling goes, think of it as you're trying to build something, right? And how do you want it to look and where do you want it to be at on your page? And so think about CSS as defining that. And so we're going to come in here, we're going to use that hashtag, we're going to go house, and then let's open up those curly brackets and let's kind of define this here. And so a house, we need to have a height and a width. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to go ahead and do width. Let's do 500 pixels. Let's do the height. Let's make that 400 pixels. And then in order to see it, let's go ahead and add a background color. So we'll do background color. And again, we have our color palette up above, and let's go ahead and utilize the house body for that. So we're going to go ahead and do a var or variable, and then we want to use the color house body. Okay. So that house looks super crazy, super tall. It's also more up on the horizon here. And I feel, and keep in mind that this house already has like the roof and stuff already built into this. We just haven't drawn it quite yet. And maybe if I can bring this over just a little bit so we can see it in its entirety. What I would like this item to do here is I would like for it to be centered. I would like it to be able to be shifted down just a little bit. And so what we're going to do as far as it, let's go ahead and convert this to a flex item. And so real quickly, I guess we can accomplish this by making the whole page a flex box. So I'm going to go ahead and do a display flex. And as far as the position here, let's go ahead and make this position relative. Okay. And next, let's go ahead and center it on the page. And we're going to go ahead and utilize the following on the body. And so we're going to do justify content, and we want that to be centered. And then down here, we want the align item, and we want that to be center as well. And so you can see how this house now is going to be centered on the grass and have that skyline. So depending upon the height and the width, that's how we're going to be utilizing this. So I feel like right now, as far as the house goes, we do need to, I think it says that we need to put a border on it. Maybe let's take a look at that. Yeah, so right here, it says that we need to have a border. So let's go ahead on our house and let's add a border to this. So we're going to do border. We're going to set that to, we'll do 6 pixels. Again, now some of these things are like trial and error until you feel like it is good for you. And so let's go ahead and utilize our variable here for the color house border. And like I said, that should give us a nice little representation here for the house. And I think that's all we really need in order to be a good test here for user stories 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into these other things that we need to go ahead and design for this house. Okay, so number 6 here, it says all immediate children of the house should have position of absolute. And whenever we're building these things, like we in the classroom, we always have something that we kind of go through, which is like we're building out a smiley face, and we have the house reference. And every single thing that we're going to be building or layering on top of this, it is going to be referencing this house as the parent. And that's why we made in that CSS, we made the position, we made that relative, because we need to say, hey, all these pieces that we're putting inside the house, we want the reference to be the house. Like, we don't want you to go outside of the house whenever we are trying to position things. And so we're going to be positioning things in an absolute, because that's what it says in here. All the children are going to have the position of absolute, and it's going to be referencing the closest parent. And when we went into the CSS file here and we said, hey, house, we want you to have that position of relative, which means that anything that we throw inside of the house, it's going to be referencing the house. It's not going to be referencing the entire web page. It's going to be referencing inside this div here. So I feel like what I want to do here, and a good way to kind of go about this and explain things, is we're going to be building out, we're going to take one thing at a time here, and we're going to start off with the roof. And so we're going to put that inside of the house because that's where we need that roof to go in. Remember, this whole container here, this house, is including the roof. So we want that roof to come down to here, right? And so let's just go ahead and do a div. And again, we want to be inside of the house here. And we don't need to put any kind of text in here. We will give it an ID, and we're going to set that to roof. Okay, so now let's go ahead and go into the CSS file and target the roof. All right, so we're going to target it here. So we're going to do the hashtag roof. We're going to open up the curly brackets, and let's just go ahead and give it a background color for right now. And let's just make it red, and just so we can kind of see it, because like right now we don't see it, and that's because the element, it doesn't take up any space. So let's go ahead and give a width here of 100%. And then let's give it a height of, again, like I said, this is all about playing with numbers here. And let's just go ahead and give it a pixel, okay? And it did say that all the elements inside here, they do need to be absolute. So we're going to go ahead and make that absolute with the position. Okay, and then we want to make sure, because I believe up here it says on user story number 8, we want to make sure that the top value is 0. So we can come in here, and because we did position absolute, what that does is it takes it out of the normal web flow, and it will position it within the parent, right? The closest parent. And in this case here, it is going to be the house. And so we're going to go ahead and do top 0. And I'll go ahead and comment this out and show you that when we do this, the red roof that we just did, it's no longer contained in the house. And so you can see it is now pulled out of context, and it is now utilizing the next available parent. And since it's inside house, that's not a parent. It moves up to the next one, which is the body. And you can see that this is why it is important to have that position here be relative. Okay. Now, as far as the hatching goes, okay, this is going to be a little bit of typing in order to get that lattice effect. And so we're going to take advantage here of the background, but we want to make sure that we have the linear gradient going on, but this time we want it to be repeating. And so there's a function out there called repeating linear gradient. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and open up the parentheses here. I'm going to hit the enter key so I can go to the next line. And what we want to do first is we want to go ahead and target the first set of lattice bars. And you can see here that they're kind of, if you take like a protractor, right? Instead of the lines going horizontal, we are going to utilize a 45-degree, okay? And then we're going to build another one on here, another repeating linear gradient. And we are going to be doing a negative 45 degrees on it. So in total, you're still getting that 90 degrees of the square that you see there. So The idea, the concept is, hey, let's go ahead and create the 45-degree one first. And the way that it needs to work is it needs to have solid colors. So it's going to be a solid stripe. So we're going to define the solid stripe. And then we want to make the next stripe kind of transparent, because this is going to be the top layer one. And next we're going to do a bottom layer one. And hopefully it will kind of make sense when we go through it here. And so what we want on here is going to be the 45-degree. And then as far as the first bar, we want that to be in color. So we want that to be our var, and then our dash color roof tile. Okay. Next on here, we want to have our color again, and we only want this to be a 2%. Okay. Now, as far as my spelling goes, I need to make sure that I spell it correctly first, and then we're going to come in here and we're going to say, hey, the next line, we need to make this transparent. And we want to pick up here, we want to do the 2%, but we also want to come in here and do another transparent one to give it an ending point, and we'll make that 5%. Okay. And so this kind of gives it the 45-degree angle here. You can see that we have our stripes. It's going full width, but now we need to go ahead and add another one here. And so I'm going to go ahead and copy this, but we're going to change a few things with it in order to get this to work properly. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and I'm going to put a comma at the end of this because I need to do another repeating linear gradient, but I need it shifted the other way. So this is going to be a minus 45 degrees. Okay, we kind of got our cross hatches going. And what I will also put in here, instead of this being transparent, just in case you guys want to change colors up on the top, we can go ahead and change this one down here. Instead of it being transparent, we can do a var, and this is going to be the color roof fill. And then we can come down here and do the same thing. Like I said, I made this simple for you guys to go ahead and change the colors on it if you wanted it to be different than the background color of the house. Okay, so again, feel free to play around with these colors up here that we created. You have the roof tile, again, if you want to change that, and then the fill, just in case you wanted it to be different than the house color by itself. Okay, all right, I think that does it for the roof. And let's go ahead and move on to the next item that we want to plop down on this house and then adjust the values. And I think I'm going to go ahead and choose the door to kind of be next. The chimney, I feel like I want to save that one for kind of last when it comes down to it. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to it. Back on the HTML side, we're going to be working on the door. And if I was in a live class trying to teach, this would be a great question to kind of ask the class, or maybe get you thinking as well. Where do we want to put this door div? Okay, the train of thought here is we know that it has to be a child of house, so it has to be inside here. Now, does it go inside here of the roof? Can it be on top? Can it be on the bottom? All right, those are the questions that you might be asking yourself. And to be honest with you, it really doesn't matter, because we are going to be pulling it out of the context and we're going to be utilizing position absolute. So really doesn't matter, but readability wise, I would probably say, hey, a roof goes on top. Next comes the door, and maybe later on we'll put the windows here, okay, in between, just for how a home is structured is how you might want to structure this. But again, it really doesn't matter when it comes to this part here. So now let's go ahead and dive into the style CSS, so that way we can define this door. And looking at the user stories, I don't see anything where it specifies height, width. It does kind of give us an idea. It does say that we want to make sure that the door is on the bottom of the house, obvious, and that has this roof constraint, meaning that, hey, the roof needs to be at least higher than 1/3 of your door height. And so we're definitely going to make sure that we take that into consideration when we're making this door. So let's go to the CSS and get it to work. So inside the CSS, I'm going to go ahead and come down here, and I'm going to set up the door. So that's going to be the hashtag door. Open up the curly brackets, and let's define the door. Let's give it a width here. Again, you can play around with these values until you get a door the way that you like. The width is going to be 130 pixels. Let's give a height here of 180 pixels. And let's go ahead and see if we can find it here by adding a background color. And let's set that to our variable that we created, which is the color and then door. Okay. And let's put that semicolon on here. So we kind of see the door. It's being kind of masked right now by that lattice roof effect that we just got done doing. And so what we want to do next is let's pull it out of context and use that position absolute. And so now it's pulled out, it is laying on top, and we want to send this to the bottom. So we're going to go ahead and do bottom, and we want to go 0% for it. So now we can see it's at the bottom. Perfect. But it looks a little shifted to the left there. And what we want to do is we want to push it over to the right. And we're going to utilize the left here. So we'll do left. And how far over are we able to put it? Let's maybe do a little bit of math here. Okay, so I kind of want the door to be centered on the house, and we know that the width of the home, it is 500 pixels. Okay, so we're going to do 500. The midway point here, so we're going to divide by 2, and we get this value here, 250. So 250 is the center line, but I need to push the door over not 250 pixels, but half of the width of the door. So the width of the door is 130. So now I need to go ahead and subtract the 65 from that, because half of 130 is 65. And then I need to go ahead and utilize this here for our point, I believe. Let me just double check that. And I think that's what I'm going to do. So that's how I'm going to push this over to the left 185 pixels. So I'll go ahead and do 185 pixels is what I want to do. And that should center my door up. Okay. Now, if we look at their example here, it looks like they have a border here for the door. So we can definitely add that to it. So we can come here and we can do border. We're going to go ahead and do 6 pixels, and we'll do solid. And the door, we're going to have it match the doorknob handle. So we're going to go ahead and do our variable and then color and then doorknob. Okay. And that kind of gave us the nice little door that we see right here. And so hopefully it's looking somewhat similar to it. And then we are going to bring it down, because you can see that we have this bar right here. And I know my photo is taking up the space of it. So let me go ahead and kind of move it out of the way here. And you can see that on the house that we have this border here. We also have this border right here from the door. And it would be really nice to be able to lower it down. And what we have to consider is, hey, this is a border right now of 6 pixels. So let's go ahead and shift everything down, that door down by 6 pixels. So we can do a transform, and we'll translate in the Y direction of 6 pixels. Okay. And that should have shifted our door down just a little bit. You can kind of see the before and after. Okay, perfect. So I think the door part is good. And now we can go ahead and add the doorknob to the door, just like what they had on theirs as well. I don't know if we have to do a doorknob on here, but it's just an extra step. And so it's really quick. So let's go ahead and add that. So if we're adding the doorknob, again, I would ask the class, where do you think we should put it? And you have to think, where would you like this to be? And again, it really doesn't matter, but for structure purposes, we will go ahead and do the following here. We're still going to reference the door. We're still going to reference the page here, but we're going to go in here and do a div. The ID, we're going to set that equal to doorknob, and then we're going to go ahead and close that off. Okay, so don't forget to close it off. And then now we can go to the style sheet, and we can come down here and target it. So as far as the doorknob, let's go ahead and do the following. Let's go ahead and make that position. Let's go ahead and do absolute. And we want the width to be, we'll say 20 pixels, the height to be 20 pixels, the background color. Let's set that to our variable here of the doorknob. So we'll do dash color, door, and then knob. So now we can see that the position here is being referenced off of the door. And now we need to make it a circle. And the way to make things a circle is we are going to do the border radius. And we're going to set that to 50%. Okay. Next, let's go ahead and do position, or we already did the position. Let's go ahead and shift it into position is what I meant to say. We want it to be in the middle. So we can do top, we'll do 50%. And then let's go ahead and move that doorknob to the right side of the door. And so we can do that with a right, and we'll kind of get it close here. We'll just go ahead and make that a percentage as well. And we'll do 5%. Okay. So now we got the doorknob on there, and the door, I believe that both of these, even though the doorknob wasn't included in the door itself in order to do, this should satisfy that condition here for the house. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to the next thing that we need to build. I'm probably going to go with the windows. Okay. Next on the list is the windows. So that's what we're going to do. Let's read a little bit about it. We want Windows 1, Windows 2. They should have a height, width, and border, as well as a color set. And then if we take a look, anything down here, your windows and your door should have either a left or a right for their value sets. And so that's really all the guidance that it gives us for these windows. And again, where do we want to put this? Well, we know we don't want to put it inside the door. We want to be all referenced to be about the house. And as far as the two windows go, it doesn't matter if it goes here. It doesn't matter if it goes here. But I am going to just put it right here. And we're going to do window 1 and window 2 respectively here. The ID that you can see right here, and the ID for the window 2 you can see right here. And that's all we need to do in order to start defining these windows. And so when we get to the CSS, this is where we're going to think about, hey, we have these two windows, and as we're defining them, and as we're looking at them, even looking at the example project here, they're both really the same, right? Like we have a window over here, and then we have a window over here. And the only difference here is one is on the left side, one's on the right side. And so what we can do here is we can define what those windows look like by combining the IDs. And then as far as the positioning goes, then we can kind of have separate CSS logic for those. And so that's how I'm going to tackle the problem with the windows. So let's first define a window, and then we'll go ahead and add the second one in there and then position them. So in the CSS file, I'm going to go ahead and scroll all the way back down to the bottom. I really wish that freeCodeCamp would not lose my position of where my cursor was, so that way I don't have to keep scrolling down every time I close it. But like I said, for the CSS for these windows here, I'm just going to target one of them right now and kind of show you what that kind of looks like. And then how can we maybe refactor this and add in the second window. Okay. Just like always, we're going to do the width And the height, let's go ahead and set the width to 100 pixels. And it looks like I got a double colon here. As far as the height, again, these are square windows. Let's do the same. And then for the background color, we can go ahead and set that to, for right now, we can use the var here and do the dash color window pane. And then we also want to make sure that this position here is absolute, and that's why we're not seeing it. And if I can spell position properly, that would help. Okay, so now we see this window, but we need to position it properly. And, of course, we can come in here and we can, for example, we can say, hey, you know what? Let's go ahead and make this one left, but change it again based on percentages, and maybe like a 7.5%. And you can see that it is positioned properly from the left point of view. Let's go ahead and push it down. So we're going to do the top here and let the top maybe be 40%. And so that kind of got it into position here. So we can see that this works really well for the left window. And if we were to copy this and paste this for the window 2, and instead of this left, let's change this to, you can kind of see that that works out, right? But we have a lot of repetitive code on here for window 1 and window 2. And what if we were to kind of combine these? Because the only difference here is the right and the left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply get rid of this part right here, the guts of it, and then we'll talk about how we can create this up here. So as far as combining these, I can do a comma window -2. And so now I have both 1 and 2 on here. But like I said, window 1, it needs to have the left position updated. Window 2 needs to have the right position updated. And so we can come over here and still do our right. And I believe we used the 7.5 here %. And then we can come over here and do window 1. And we can set this one up for the left 7.5%. Let me update this right here. This needs to be a 1. And then up here, I totally forgot my hashtag. So there we go. This is how we can kind of refactor what we were defining with the window. Because like I said, the only thing that changes is the left or the right. Okay. Now, let's see here. I feel like they had these window panes in here. And how are we going to create this? We're going to utilize the linear gradient on there. So we'll make sure we put that in there. And we also need the border that we see, because right now my windows are blank without a border. So as far as the border goes, that's a real quick fix. Both windows get a border. So we can do border. We'll do 6 pixels. We're going to go ahead and do a solid, and we're going to set the color here to be based upon the color window frame. So hopefully you're seeing why these variables are kind of nice to have. We don't have to remember any kind of values. We can set them from the beginning. Next is the window panes itself. And so, like I said, we're going to utilize the background here to kind of do that linear gradient. We still want to have the yellow. We also want to make sure that I guess you'd say that when we're going through the gradient, that in the middle point, we have like a little bar that goes up and down. And that's what's going to help us out here with that. Let's go ahead. I'm going to copy this to my clipboard or cut it. So let's use the linear gradient feature or function. And once we have that, then we can go ahead and utilize as far as the pattern that we're looking to go with here, we want to utilize the to right. And then this is where we can put in our var that we put on here. And we're going to say, hey, we want this yellow to go all the way up here to the 48%. And then after that, matter of fact, let me make this a little bit easier for us to read here. And then we want this to kind of pick back up at the 52% right there. So this gives us our yellow. Now, what I'll do in between here is I'm going to do another var, and then I'm going to utilize our color of the window frame. And I want that to start at that 48%. That's going to be a hard stop. You can kind of see that it's a real thin line, but we are wanting it to take that thin line and go all the way to the 52. And so we can copy this and simply just replace that 48 here with the 52 to make that line just a little bit thicker. Okay. So now we have our house, our windows, and I totally forgot to kind of bring this up. And if you're working on a smaller screen, you might have seen that your house looks not like this, right? And so how can we force this house to not flex? And so one of the things that we do need to do to our house is we need to define the flex. And so all I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and type out the property here of flex. And we want to make sure that the house doesn't grow, it doesn't shrink, and we're going to put the auto in here. And that should help with keeping this house perfectly with that width that we gave it, okay? Because when you have flex items, it will allow it to grow and shrink automatically, and we don't want that. And so that's why we had to define this specific flex here, okay? So sorry about that. I didn't bring that up earlier, but I did want to bring it to your attention that we definitely have to do that, especially if you're like, hey, Rob, my house looks like it's been blown apart, right? So we don't want that to happen. But hopefully you can see here that we can combine the things that define the window, and then the only things that are different are going to be this right here, which is the left and the right. And I believe that should solve the problem that we were being in charge of solving here for the windows. So they have a height, they have a width, they have a border, the background color is set, and that works perfect. All right, let's move on to the final piece, which is the chimney. Okay, so we're back on the HTML. Let's go ahead and define the next piece here, which is the chimney. So all we're going to do is do the div ID chimney, making sure I spell that, and then close off this div. Okay, perfect. I think that's what we need for the HTML. Now it's time to go to the CSS page and figure out how we can define this one, okay? Because remember, one of our rules here is all of these items, they need to be children of the house, and that is true for this. So let's go to Style CSS. I'm going to go ahead and close off of that HTML, and let's go back down here and define the chimney. And hopefully you're seeing a little bit of a pattern with this, where we're going to start off with the width, the height, and then the position, absolute. And then that's where we can kind of move it into position, right? So let's go ahead and do the width. Let's set that to 90 pixels. Let's do the height. Let's set that to 100 pixels. Position, absolute. Background color. Let's go ahead and utilize our variable here of the color chimney light. And let me double check to make sure that this is all spelled properly. So let me pause this real quick. All right, so everything looks like it's spelled properly. Let's go ahead and see if we can just shift this item out of this container here. Let's do a top. Let's use a negative number. We'll do 100 pixels. And looks like we do have something that looks like a chimney. And again, if you like it in this position, you definitely can. I believe the other one, if we were to do something like left, and we can use 65%, and it gets it into position there. Now, I know that when we're looking at the chimney here on number 13, it says, make sure that we utilize a Z index that puts it behind the house. So all we have to do is do Z index, and we can do -1, and that kind of put it behind the house. So again, if we were to look at how did they put the little brick stripes on there, again, that's another linear gradient. And if you want, we can go ahead and do that. So this can be our chimney here. Again, this is only extra if you really wanted to do this. We're going to utilize the repeating linear gradient that we did before. So let's do that, repeating linear gradient. And so we're going to start off with the light color, and then we're going to say, hey, take this light color and go up to the 10%. After that, then we can go ahead and add in the dark themed one. So that's going to be almost the exact same thing. And it's going to go from 10% here. And let me change this light to dark. And then we can come in here one more time. And we want to go from 10 to 12 to give it that nice little speck of like 2 pixels here. And so let's go ahead and paste this. We'll do this dark. And then we want this to be 12%. And you can kind of see that we have that there. Let me get rid of that comma. So we have the lines there. Looks like we also have a border that we need to put in there. So let's go ahead and address that to make sure that it matches what they had. And so we'll just do border. Let's try 2 pixels. Do solid. And then we'll do the chimney dark for the color. And then there we go. We have the horizontal slicings on there, and then we have our border, and it looks like the chimney from the example project that we have right there. Okay. And I think that is it as far as that's concerned. Let's go ahead and check everything. All right. So I think that we satisfied all the user stories. We got it looking exactly like the image. I know we didn't do the smoke. If you are interested in the final code for that, I'll make sure to put it in the description. But let's go ahead and see if it passes all of these tests. Fingers crossed here. Okay, so fingers crossed. Let's go ahead and see if we got it or not. Otherwise, we might have to run through some of these tests here and see what is going on. Let's see. All right, so looks like we failed, at least number 16 here. But let's go ahead and read what we are failing and see what we can do to correct it. So it says chimney needs a background color. Let's see if there's any more X's on here. The roof is set, or the roof set its border property, and looks like background color. So it looks like a lot of background color stuff that is missing on here. And so I don't know why they are testing for this if we're utilizing the background and a gradient, but it is specifically looking for background. So what I'm going to do on all these here that are looking for background, so for example, chimney, right? I'm just going to come in here. I'm going to do background color black. You're going to notice that it doesn't do anything because we have a gradient going on, okay? But if I were to run the test, the number 16 should be good to go now. So that's what I'm going to do with all of these real quick. So let's go ahead and go through the next one. Matter of fact, I'm just going to copy this, and anytime I am moving to something that says, hey, the background color is missing, that's what I'm going to do. So it says the roof here is missing a background color. So I'm going to come all the way up here to the roof, and then I'm going to add in the background color. Now, I believe, and it's been a while since I did this, it says to run the test, Control Enter. You can go ahead and test these out here. So that number should be done. Perfect. So I got my background color. Next, let's go ahead and take a look at the next X. So window 1, and I'm assuming window 2 also need a background color. So I'm just going to come down here. There we go. And I'll go ahead and test those out. And boom, we are good to go there. Next, let's see if there's any more X's here with background color, and I'm not seeing it. Okay, so I do have one X on here, I believe. It's number 21. and it says that you should target the roof and set the border property. So it looks like we didn't set the border property on the roof. So let's go ahead and target it. Now, when it comes to the border, I'm just going to go ahead and give it a 2-pixel border, and that should fix it. So we'll do border, we'll do 2 pixels, and it should be fine with that. So let me go ahead and test that out and run these tests. There we go. Congratulations. We are done. All right, so if you made it to the end of this video, you are a true champion, right? So anyways, hopefully this video ended up helping you out. Like I said, all of the source code for this, as far as getting started with your palette, is going to be available down below the video. Make sure you check out that link. And as well as if you had any trouble or any issues, make sure you take a look at the description in this video. We can definitely get you help. Click the link and you can ask your question there. All right, so we'll see you in the next video. Take care and keep coding.